You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is David Cole, President and CEO of Maui Land and Pineapple Company, Inc. Under David's leadership, Maui Land and Pineapple has worked to address the lack of affordable housing, which eventually led to the provision of 450 affordable homes on Maui. He currently serves on the advisory boards of Kamehameha Schools.
We know that you implement these practices within your business, but in your personal life, it seems that you're on several nonprofit boards and you're spending considerable amounts of time there also. Why are you doing that?
Well, for lots of reasons. I mean, one of the things that happens when you're in a community like this one is that the decisions about where you go and how you do things are not entirely up to you. My passions, I think, are well known by my mentors and my friends, and so sometimes they come to you and say, it's time for you to do these things. And that's what happened in the case of the Nature Conservancy of Hawaii, where I'm chairman. I'm involved in a turnaround of a company, a very old company, a distinguished company on Maui, and the Nature Conservancy is a fairly complex and also very well-rooted and respected nonprofit organization that's doing important work in Hawaii. And the leadership of that organization came to me, people that I respect and, frankly, I can't say no to, and just said, it's time for you to do this. You have to step up and become chairman here. So, and that's what it's like in an island community. It can be a little intimidating at times, but it's the right thing to do. It's not something I would seek out, not at this stage of my life. I'm happy I'm doing it, yes, but does it matter? I have to do it, and I'm happy to do it because your colleagues, your mentors, and your friends, they, in the end, I think they have a pretty good sense as to what's needed. And that's true with some of the other relationships. So when DJ Mailer called me when she came to the Kamehameha Schools and asked me if I would be an advisor to Kamehameha Schools, I instantly said yes. And I'm very happy I did because it's a very important link for me. And historically, it's an organization that I've followed very closely through most of my life.
What change did you see in your career path when you started getting more involved, as chairman of the board and the advisory board of Kamehameha Schools? Because, you're really involved in the community in Maui and some of the other things that you're doing to build the communities, but actually getting involved in these boards. What change did you see in your career with that?
Well, it's not so much in my career, really kind of more, it's more enriching in my personal life. And so I'm so old now that I'm not sure I'm, in the career dressing up mode. But personally, it's been very enriching, to get some, a deeper appreciation for what's happening in different aspects of the community. I've been very happy to see and be engaged in these very long discussions. I mean, if you look at the preparation that goes into an advisory board meeting at Kamehameha Schools, it's phenomenal. And they're very serious about making sure that the time you spend there is time well spent. And I deeply appreciate it. I'm quite sure I take away, a lot more value than I give in those advisory board sessions. And I feel the same way with my colleagues, whether staff or fellow board members at the Nature Conservancy. There's a lot of give and take. There are a lot of different perspectives that are shared. And I feel I always walk away with far more than I brought to the meetings.
Did you always do this when you were younger also, or just as you got more mature in your career?
Well, I think I was more involved in college. I was kind of much more involved in social activist issues. The Indochina War was very much part of what we were faced with here in Hawaii in the late 1960s, the early 1970s. We had a lot of stresses and strains that were taking place here. I mean, you had so many kind of cultural changes that were underway. And I was very much engaged in a lot of that, kind of experimenting with being a political activist and a social activist in different ways.
We're almost out of time, but if you could give our listeners maybe some last advice on getting involved in the community and just really involving their business practices to integrate to help both of them succeed at the same time.
Well, I've said to a lot of folks that I've worked with over the years that have sought out my advice, particularly in the high-tech world, that if you want to know what to do, find a person half your age and observe them. But if you want to know how to do it, find somebody twice your age and see how they've managed through difficult situations in a much longer career. So it's being open to those different perspectives and not just, hanging out with folks that are your age, that are sharing largely the same experiences. So diversity of experience really helps strengthen your own perspectives and gives you a sense of the possible, which is vitally important for leaders to have.
And lastly, can you share with us maybe an inspirational story of some sort that kind of has made a difference in your life, whether it's community or giving back or sustainability or any of that?
Right. Well, one person who we saw early on when he came back was a secretary who had signed up for one of the employee housing projects that was done by the company years ago. And even though she was at the top of the list, and they had a seniority system at the time, no one really had talked with her and her husband about how you qualify for a mortgage or how you think about actually getting into a home. So the day came when it was time for them to pick their home from this relatively small community that the company had managed to get entitled, and at the last minute they discovered that they didn't qualify for a mortgage. And that ended up costing the company her engagement with the company, and she and her husband moved to Las Vegas. So that made it clear to us we had to think beyond just, making housing available. We had to, as just an entitlement matter, we had to really think through the whole situation, the whole person, in terms of their credit issues and their saving issues and the whole solution. And that's what we're responsible for, is getting them in, to the house and keeping them engaged as a member of our community. And that really kind of woke me up. That was very early on when she announced that she was leaving because they were unable to afford a home. And I would like to one day find a way to bring her and her family home.
Thanks for joining us today on Greater Good Radio. For more information or a transcript of today's show, please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio, Hawaii.